Okay.
So my name is Natalie, and I host Inside Our Universe. It's a radio show out of Fredonia, New York. I'm a sophomore audio radio major with a music industry minor at SUNY Fredonia. And you probably know my co-host, Carolyn Hope. She's a photographer.
I do. She's amazing.
She's talked to you a couple of times. She's unable to be here today. I think she has a class, but I'm super excited to get to know you. So introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much for wanting to have me on, first and foremost. I really appreciate it.
I love your work. I'm a super big fan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an honor to be asked to be on podcasts in general. I've been doing them a little bit lately, but normally I don't do like interviews. I'm normally a very much behind the scenes oriented person. So it's really cool to have an opportunity to, I guess, be in the forefront and talk about my work. But basically, I'm Nicole. I'm Nicole Stephens. I am a photographer and a filmmaker. Prior to COVID, I was touring full time as a VIP assistant and touring photographer and merchandise manager.
That's awesome. So I watched your YouTube video about how you became a tour photographer, and it sounds like you started at like a super young age. Did you have any like doubts about that?
100%. A lot of it was, I think it took an entire year to convince myself to even start music photography. I was interested in music photography when I was 15, and I went to a show and I saw someone at the photo pit taking pictures. And I would always see live music photos on the internet, and I would be really intrigued by them about like, oh, like how did that picture get taken? Like, that's so cool. I didn't see anybody with a camera. That's so cool. And the time being like 15 years old, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. This is so scary because the music industry, I think outwardly, I think especially if you start as a fan being really passionate about the artists that you want to work with, you're very much like, this is such a big world and I'm such a little person. So it was a lot of talking myself into being like, hey, you're going to be fine. You know, even if your photos aren't the best, even if people make fun of you, at least you tried. And that's very much been my thing ever since. Always trying. I would rather be known as somebody who tried than not trying at all and being disappointed in myself for like not committing to doing something that I really wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it for sure. What made you realize that photography was for you?
Wow, I guess because I grew up very science-minded. I wanted to be a doctor prior to getting to high school and having the rude awakening that science is kind of complicated, at least for my brain. I consider myself to be more of a, I guess, neurodivergent type of person. So it's really hard for me to pay attention in math and science classes and have that be something that like stuck with me in my brain. So I think photography stuck with me because it's a way to kind of combine both worlds. There are certain math elements to photography, like calculating your shutter and your aperture, while also being creative. So you're kind of able to use the science of capturing light. I think of a lot of photo shoots and photography techniques that I use today kind of as weird science experiments. So it was a way to kind of combine my love of science, which is the science of capturing light, which is photography, and also being creative and getting something really cool out of this weird science experiment that I call photography at times.
I think that's a super cool way to think about it. I've never even thought of photography that way. So that was super cool to like think about that as you were saying that. I think that's really awesome.
Thank
What
you.
has being a photographer taught about yourself and the other people around you?
Wow, definitely for me, it's a confidence thing. I didn't realize how I saw myself until I started capturing other people, if that makes sense. I never understood why it was hard to take portraits of people. Like when I first started out, I was just strictly doing music photography. And then when I started doing more like one-on-one stuff with bands, I couldn't figure out for the life of me. I'm like, why is this so awkward? You know, why can't I just get that shot? Because, you know, especially when you watch movies of photographers, you see like the Hollywood depiction of what a photographer is. You think of someone with a camera that's just like shooting and flashes going off. And in movies, you know, magazine photo shoots or portrait shoots look so easy. If you've ever had a school portrait taken, you kind of remember that feeling of being like 10 years old and just getting a really awful haircut that you don't like, and then having someone be like, smile.
Yeah. And it's like 2 seconds and you don't even really remember what happened, and nobody's like, you know, they click the picture and you're moving along.
Absolutely. And it took me a while to realize that like artists and people who are getting their picture taken, they feel the same way. It doesn't matter if you're not like a glamour shots person or it's not this huge magazine photo shoot. People are always going to feel incredibly insecure in front of the camera. And for me as a photographer, I'm just like, it's so easy. Like, you look fine, you look great. Like, why are you, why is this awkward? Because as a photographer, it's like really easy for me to like see the beauty in people and like think like, why would they not be comfortable? Why is this so hard? But like, I started photographing myself and realizing, oh wow, okay, like I can realize why I'm having this disconnect with people, or like, oh, why it's quote unquote hard, because like it is you have this perception of yourself in your head of what you look like,
Yes.
whether it's good or bad, and you're like, oh yeah, like I know I'm not ugly, I don't think I'm ugly. But then you look in a mirror, you get like a really bad photo taken of yourself, and you're like, I'm hideous. No one perceived me ever.
And
And
it's one split second that's in that picture, and people
yes,
think it's how everybody in the world ever perceives them. It's crazy.
exactly. So as like being a photographer has taught me so much about not only perception of myself, but like how other people perceive themselves and how powerful of a tool it is to help empower other people. And also like for myself, like it was really empowering. I think in 2019 I tried to do like a self-portrait shoot of myself every single month, and that helps me better understand like, hey, it's important to like build a connection, or at least talk to the people that you're going to shoot before you do it. So it's not just like, what do I do? What do I do with my hands? What should I do? Because I feel the same exact way. Like I would shoot myself and I'd be like, is this right? Does this weird? And then you just, it's kind of this weird, like out of body experience of like, we were trying to like infer of how you look, and people are doing the same thing when you're shooting them. So I learned it's really important to just like, one, get comfortable like being somewhat in front of a camera as a photographer, but also like being able to empathize with the people you're shooting, of like, hey, like getting your photo taken is an awkward experience, and like I want to make this the least awkward I possibly can. And I've been there. I've had awful photos taken of me. I've taken awful photos of myself, and I want to avoid that at all costs. So like that's something I've learned, and it's made me a substantially better photographer, I think.
Yeah, I think that's super cool that you kind of used yourself as like an example to better your own work for other people. I think that's really a cool way to approach that. How has your passion for photography grown into videography and creative direction?
Yes. Okay. So this has always been something that's been in my head since I picked up a camera. As a kid, I would always watch movies, and I'm like, man, I want to make movies or be in movies or do something. How do I do that? And I realized that like making movies and video production is like a huge task to take on, and that there's so many roles and like people doing budgeting and accounts and PAs and runners and all of that. But like as a kid, I was like, the easiest way for me to like be in movies or make movies is just to like film my friends or take photos of my friends and like edit it into something. I was super into video when I got my first camera. My first camera was like a camcorder that my mom got from Home Shopping Network, and I would just take it to school and film my friends and like take stills of them. And then as I got more into the music industry and touring, I noticed a lot of bands are like, hey, we want somebody who can do photo, but we also want somebody who can do video. Like, hey, can you do video? And that video is becoming more prevalent on social media and what bands want in terms of content creation on the road, but just in general for like releasing things. And it's becoming a huge thing. So I was like, okay, I need to learn how to do video, and I need to learn how to like step it up, especially when COVID hit. Because for me, I felt like I was coasting in a way of just like doing photography and like knowing how to do things on the road, like tour management, merch management, and VIP. But when it came to, oh, shows aren't happening, tours aren't happening, like what can I do to still make myself hireable or be able to offer a service to artists who necessarily aren't touring and aren't going to be touring and aren't going to be playing shows for the next, it's 2021, so I'm fingers crossed like end of this year, early next year, but won't be playing shows indefinitely. I was like, hey, like a really cool way to do that would be able to kind of create a strategy with artists and like talk to them about their music and their releases and like what they're up to and what they want to do, and kind of put together like, hey, like you just sent me this demo of the song you're working on. Like, I have this idea. Like, how do you feel about this for like a release? Or like, I'm getting like these vibes or these colors for it. I got my start with, I guess, creative direction and videography with my friend Melanie. She's like a singer-songwriter. She goes by the name Honey Lane. And we were just talking about it last summer. And I was like, hey, like, I would love to do a video for you. Like, here are my ideas. Like, this song that you sang for me is really amazing. Like, let's do like a whole release and like let me creative direct and like make a video for you. And she was like, yeah, I'm so down, we'll do it. And then that was kind of a terrifying process because like I didn't know what I was doing. 100%, I will admit that I didn't know what I was doing. I think a lot of people who are industry professionals, they hate like admitting like I didn't know what I was doing this one time. But like I think it's important. Like, I don't have all the answers, and I think as creatives, it's so important that we learn as we go and we remain being students rather than being like, I know everything and I'm great and I don't have anything to learn and I'm an artist all the time and everything I produce is immaculate. But getting into that, it was kind of like a great gateway because I was like, wow, I'm like capable of so much more than just doing photography. Like, I am capable of like actually producing a music video and like building a set and like having a storyboard and like doing everything myself. I know most
people kind of gave
have
you another avenue to like communicate with people in the industry, like people who maybe do their own photography. It's another way to communicate with people and be like, here's more of my skills and I'd love to get to know you. And I think that's super cool to be able to approach people from different avenues and say, here's all of the things that I can bring to the table. I think that's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And that was a large part of making the transition and being like, hey, like, I'm not just a photographer. I can do videography. I can do creative direction. I can do styling. I think this upcoming week I'm doing 2 shoots for album artwork, which I'm really excited about. Something that I haven't done, but I fell into doing album artwork through doing videos and creative direction because I would take stills on like the sets of music videos, and then people like the artist I was working for was like, I love this, can I make this the album artwork? And they'd be like, yes, absolutely. And now people have like seen those album artworks and like Spotify canvases we've collaborated on and being like, hey, can you do this for my band? Or hey, can you do this for me? I'm dropping a single. So I'm getting more into that, and it's amazing. Yeah, it's definitely amazing being able to communicate with people in a different way and saying, hey, like, I also do this and I also do this. And I think when things music industry wise get a little bit more active, people are gonna be like, oh wow, like, you tour and you can do all of this stuff when you're not touring. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah. So speaking of the pandemic, you have created some music videos since the pandemic started last year. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences and opportunities that you've been given while COVID has been going on?
Yes, absolutely. So wow, COVID hit me like, I don't know how to describe it other than being hit by a car, but also like after you get hit by a car, like getting up and being so full of adrenaline that like you don't feel like anything's wrong. So like someone's like, oh my gosh, this awful thing happened, you just got into a car accident, are you okay? And you tell the person that hit you or the other car like, no, I'm fine, like, don't worry about it, like, it'll be great, like, no, I'm just gonna sleep this off. And originally when COVID hit, that's exactly how I felt, because we were very foolishly under the impression that like COVID was going to be over by summer 2020, which I'm just like so embarrassed to think about.
A lot of people in the music industry had the same thought, like it'll pass, it's just going to be a couple of months, and here we are now.
Yeah, so embarrassing. So I was like, oh yeah, like, I'll just stay home, everybody else will stay home, like, things will die down. And then summer came around and I was like, wait, all the rescheduled things are now canceled, what's going on? It didn't really like hit me that like, oh, this is reality, until I think about like July. So I was like, wow, what am I going to do now? Like, all the tours I was supposed to do this summer and this fall are 100% not happening. I am going to be without a work until like 2021 or maybe 2022. So I'm like, wow, like, what do I do? And then I had the whole conversation with my friend Melanie about like getting into creative direction and video. So we did that. That video was like so hard. Like I said, it was one of the hardest things that I think I've done in recent memory, because I did everything myself from start to finish. But from that, I submitted that video for a couple grant submissions. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to get these, but I might as well do it. You know, what else is there to lose? If I don't get them, then I can just work twice as hard. Like, it's fine. Something will work out eventually. So one of them I submitted for was for the National Black Arts Forward Foundation. They're based in Atlanta, and they have normally before COVID, they had like exhibits and galleries where they would showcase different Black artists. And they also had like a film festival that they were going to put on last year, but COVID happened. So instead of using the resources for the in-person galleries they decided that they wanted to give micro grants to Black creatives like photographers, filmmakers. So I applied for that, and then I also applied for the Moment Creator Grant, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this, but I might as well do it, because again, it's always in my book, it's better to try than not do anything at all. So I submitted I wasn't even done editing the video, but I submitted it. Like, I submitted like a rough draft for both. And I won both of them. And I found out like back to back that I received both grants. And the Moment grant was really helpful because I had wanted to upgrade my camera gear for a really long time so I can get more engrossed into video production. The camera I was using prior to winning both grants was I'm not even going to drag this camera. It's an amazing camera. I still use it. It's the Canon 6D, but it's the Mark 1. So it's not the 60 Mark 2. It's just like the full frame entry level Canon camera. I was using that, but it wasn't amazing for video. And I wanted something that like shot 4K and like had larger RAW files. So I won that. That was amazing. And that opportunity also awarded me the ability to work with an artist I had my eye on. I was like, okay, I need to put together like a music video, that's part of winning both of these grants. I need to like have something to show for what I use the grant funds for. So I pitched to an artist that like a lot of people had told me about. She lives in Florida. They're like, hey, you guys should work together. Like, hey, like, I feel like you guys really get along. Her name's Charlene. She's based in Tampa, and I like love her and her music. And I DM'd her on Twitter and was like, hey, we should work together. I just won this grant and I feel like it would be a great collab. So we did, and we put together a music video. We actually filmed 2 music videos in one weekend because I couldn't pick which song of hers I liked the most. We ended up deciding on the Sunflower song. That was an incredible experience. And then from there, people found my work because more people found my work. Moment gave me like a platform for my art and displayed the video on their website and, tweeted about the winners and like posted me on their Instagram story constantly for a little bit. And that gave me more momentum and more people started reaching out of like, hey, like this video you did is amazing. Like, hey, I'd love to work with you. Or like, hey, what are your rates? Hey, like I'm thinking about, keeping you in mind for this project. And like from there, I got a really awesome referral for like a full-time media producer job a couple weeks ago, and it's been really great. It's been working out slightly.
Sad stories about how people's kind of art and careers came crumbling to pieces when the pandemic hit. So it's really nice to hear somebody who's had like a number of opportunities come their way and like gain more success. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like that's really cool.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's definitely rough. Like, I'm never gonna I hate when people are like, oh, everything's fine. It's definitely rough, like financially, like having to like go from making like I would say like over half my income was just like gone overnight, and like it was like a really tough adjustment. It still is, but like I feel like just now, like in the beginning of like 2021, like I'm just like getting back into
positive out of the experience, which
absolutely.
A lot of people are struggling to find even one thing that's come out of it for them. So you talked a little bit about Charlene. I've seen the video. I love it. It's video set in a sunflower field. So can you talk about the process of creating a music video and how it kind of starts from an idea to a final product?
Yes, absolutely. So I know a lot of like DPs, directors of photography, cinematographers, like videographers, they all have different processes. I'm just going to talk specifically about mine. I don't believe in right or wrong processes when it comes to creating things. So with Charlene, we had like normally with every shoot I do, I like to have a Zoom call with a person before and be like, hey, like, this is who I am as a person. Like, who are you as a person? Like, let's talk. What's our commonality? I love to find commonality with artists prior to working together. That way we have like a solid common ground or like something to bond over. For Charlene, it was both like our faith, but also like being liberal Christians and like deconstructionists. So we were talking about that. She said, hey, I have like a lot of songs that I'm sitting on. I don't really know what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just send me whatever you're working on, and I will spend a day just listening to your music on a loop, and I'll tell you like what I like the most. So she's like, okay, great. She sent me 3 songs. She told me which one was her favorite. And then she like let me pick my favorites. And then I had 2 that like really stuck out to me in terms of like getting visual imagery of things that I wanted to do. Like Sunflower Song definitely stood out to me because I was like, it's very like vintage, warm, like I felt like I was being played this song by like a campfire, very like sunny vibes is what I got. And then there was another song. I'm not gonna we're still working on the video for that, so I'm not gonna talk about that song too much. But from there I was like, okay, this is what I'm getting. I think this song is perfect. I have the perfect location because I'm like, oh, like there's this huge sunflower fields like in Homestead, like it'll be beautiful. I've shot there before. And I'm like, oh, we can pick the sunflowers. And then I had this concept for doing a like milk bath, but I wanted to do it in a music video because it was part of another treatment for the first video I did. We had like a scene with like a milk bath, and that was going to be very dramatic, but we opted not to do that. We wanted to do something more simple. So I was like, oh, what's another way I can incorporate a previous creative concept into this new project? And from there, I like to put together mood boards or like visual storyboards with different locations and ideas. So I will literally make a PowerPoint presentation and send it to the artist and be like, okay, hey, this is what I've got. These are the locations. This is what I'm thinking. These are my visual inspirations. I'm really thinking film, like 8mm vibes. I'm thinking we can shoot it here. We'll shoot it from this time to this time, and like basically like a whole thing of like if we were about to do this video, this would be my process, like from start to finish. And she's like, this is great. This is amazing. I'm super excited about it. Like, let's do it. And I'm okay. I just said great. From there, I had to get an assistant because I knew I couldn't do everything myself this time since we were shooting outdoors, and we had like an actual budget to hire people. So I hired my friends. It was super important to me. I think like with every project that I do, it's super important to me that I hire gender diverse people or anybody like people of color in general. That's so important to me because in film it is so white male dominated, and it makes it super intimidating, especially for me getting into it and like being a Black woman already. I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm already a photographer, but like who do I think I can be, a filmmaker now? Because like everybody that I see in film that's like killing it is white and male. That's changing. I've like adjusted my feed to following more Black like female cinematographers. But like when I first started like a couple months ago, I was like, I only see white men doing this.
Yeah, Black Women Photographers is a great organization. I actually just did a feature on them last week. They highlight women in specifically photography, but I think they are here and stand by Black women in all music industry fields, and they're super great at promoting Black women's work. I fell in love with looking at all of their portfolios and everything. It's awesome.
I love them. Polly, the founder, I actually connected with her over the summer, like before the site went live, and she was like, hey, I want to interview you and like feature you. And we became friends over the summer, and actually like I found out about all of the grants that I won through the Black women photographers Slack channel that I'm a part of. So like we have like a little group chat. So like I'm glad that you mentioned them because they're incredible. They're one of my favorite organizations, them and To the Front are like are organizations that I always back. Like yes.
Yeah.
But back to process in terms of that. So then I had to look for a crew, which I wanted to have a makeup artist, and then I consider myself fashionable. So normally I stand in as a stylist for artists. So Charlene, in terms of wardrobe, she like FaceTimed me at thrift stores or like sent me pictures at thrift stores of like, hey, like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, color wise, I want you to stick to like this color wave because the way I'm going to color grade it, that's another thing that I think about in advance, like color grade in the way that I'm going to have it look in post. That way I'm not like being like, hey, why doesn't this look the way I want it to look? It's because like I didn't plan. That's normally what happens. So I like to plan things down to a T like that of like, hey, we're red because it's gonna like contrast really well with like the orange and the green and the blue that's gonna be in the final color grade. She's like, great, wonderful, we'll do that. So wardrobe was a thing, and then makeup, and then I needed a PA, someone to help me with lighting. I love working with natural light. The thing about natural light, especially in Miami, is that the sun is just like beaming. So I needed people to hold reflectors and like do fill lighting. That way the subject's properly exposed. Also renting gear and purchasing gear to get the right technical aspects correct, because I was switching from Sony to Canon. All of my lenses are Canon, but my body is Sony. So I'm like, oh gosh, do I buy all new Sony lenses? Do I rent Sony lenses? What do I do? So dealing with that was also another part of it. And then finally, I like to do, since like I'm used to tour worlds, I created a day sheet and started a group chat for everybody who was like working on the shoot that weekend. And I was like, hey, this is the run of show for this day. Everybody be here at like this is our hard call time. Please be on time. If you're late, like it's gonna mess with lighting, X, Y, and Z. If you're late, yada yada yada. Fortunately, I was working with women, so everybody was on time. I'm not funny. Please disregard that. But everybody was on time. It was great. I feel like there's something incredible about just working with like a team of like women and gender diverse people, because like we all get it. We're all like, hey, I'm not going to mess around because like this is a great opportunity, or this is something I'm really passionate about. And then we shot all day, and then from shooting, it goes to a lot of just like, hey, this is the first cut of the music video, and then I'll send that to the artist. We're like, hey, this is the first cut, this is what I'm thinking about, this is no color grading, no transitions, this is just like the flat cut like of what I'm thinking pacing wise. And then from there the artist will be like, okay, I like the pacing of this, or hey, can we get more scenes, or hey, do you have footage from this angle, I remember we shot this scene and like we looked through this footage together, is there any way you could incorporate this, or like, hey, I don't like the way that I look in this scene, can you swap it out with this scene. We have a lot of revisions going back and forth, and that happens for like a good week and a half or 2 weeks. So I will spend an entire day editing, and then I'll send it and I'll say, hey, can you send me revisions by this day, so I can spend another day editing and adding things. And then finally, when we have the pacing correct, I'll start doing like the fine tuning things like color correction, transitions, and then the kind of like audio effects, kind of just like simple things like the fade in, fade out, and like adding more like crackles, film grain to kind of correlate with the way that the song sounds. And then from there, we'll do like there's business stuff, and it comes to uploading things to Spotify, like the TuneCore distribution stuff. I'm not entirely well versed in that because I normally leave that up to the artist. I'm not an artist manager yet. It's very possible that could be a thing one day, but they normally handle that, and I just make sure they have all of the assets sized accordingly so they look the best when they create like a Spotify canvas, or if they want to do a trailer for social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of those social media, I'll put together trailers for that so they can tease things. I'll ask them, I'm like, hey, do you want the release date on it? Do you want like a countdown? And then from there, I will go through the finished video and I will screen grab like every other frame. That way they have like teaser content to post. And then we'll go through kind of, depending on the artist. I know Charlene's like super independent in the scene and like has a strong idea of like what she wants to upload on her feed, but some other artists that I've worked with recently and in the past have been like, I don't know what looks good, I want my feed to just look good, tell me what to post. So then we'll go through, I'll tell most of the people I work with to download the preview app, and then I will screenshot the preview app of the way that I would upload things and like how I would phrase things, or like, hey, you should do this, you should post a reel, you should do an IGTV, and you should go live like a couple days before, and then the day of the release, and then like maybe a couple days after to connect with people and do kind of like a rollout of getting the most eyes possible you can on the release. And that's pretty much it. I try to do everything myself, or at least like give artists like everything they need to like be successful in like releasing a video.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't even imagine. That's crazy. To do everything, to know how to do all of that yourself is incredible.
Thank you. It's incredibly stressful. But like it's so worth it, because I'll look back and I'll be like, this was so cool. That was such a fun project. I'm excited.
Incredible. So it's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Pretty much on your own. That's awesome. So what do you think touring will look like when it comes back? Will there be more opportunities for people to tour, or less opportunities after the pandemic?
Wow. So I read an article about this pretty recently. I think it was trending on Twitter, or it was like one of those paid promoted articles with like the whole social media surveillance state going on. I don't know if my phone is eavesdropping about like when I'm talking about these things and like recommending articles to me. But an article that I read pretty recently is like, oh, roadies, like half of the touring workforce like isn't coming back to touring like when it resumes. That was like something that like was theorized by a couple industry people. Which even if that is the case, because I don't know if I completely agree with that point of view, it could be possible. I know it's pretty traumatic to lose your entire livelihood overnight and then to go back into that with like the same potential risk of happening, especially with like the new variants of COVID and like you never know what the next thing is going to be that's going to be able to like prevent you from making money, you know. And definitely I know a lot of people that I've toured with have either gone on to start like small businesses that have been really successful, or even people that have toured in the past have gotten like straight up full-time jobs with benefits where they're making like 50-60K a year. They're just like they're like, I'll go back to touring. Yeah, no, 100%. But I'm like, will you go back to touring? Like, will you go back to making like a fourth of your income, like untaxed for a year? I don't know. It's really subjective. For me personally, what I think it's gonna look like is I think what I want it to look like. I'll do what I want it to look like, and then what I think it's going to look like. I think in the beginning, I think what it's realistically going to look like is a lot of people who want to be that who have the pre-existing connections, who want to tour. They're going to be out there, like for sure. And like, hey, like if you toured before and you have your bands that you worked with, or you have really good references, or people who've like been keeping eyes or tabs on each other and like what they're doing during quarantine. Those people are definitely going to be working and like being put on tours. And then there's people who like have been doing it for like decades and they're just like, actually, no, I think I'm gonna stay home. Like I'm making good money and like whatever I'm doing now. And I think that will hopefully lead the way to what I want to happen, which is seeing like a lot more gender and racial diversity on the road. For a really, 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 really long time, I was like the only Black woman on tours. I think the most recent tour I did, I was the only woman and the only Black woman on that tour. I think like the first day of the tour, I like saw like a bunch of women like, you know, setting up and stuff. And I was like super excited. And I introduced myself like, oh, we're only on for the first day. Sorry, you know, we're just like local people. And I was like, no. And then it's just been really rough being being a minority and then also like being a woman. And I hope that with the people who are potentially leaving touring or like the entertainment like setup lifestyle, I hope that that paves the way for newer people who are gender and racially diverse to like step in and want to like get the opportunities that they want. I know there have been a ton of like clubhouse talks about like sexism in the music industry, and
I've
like
been a part of a bunch of them.
yes,
I think this is going to be the opportunity for people who like don't always get the opportunity.
yes.
I think this will be their way in.
Yes, I really hope so. I want to hope that that's the case, but I feel like I've seen a lot of stuff and heard a lot of stuff over the years of like, you know, like some of my favorite people in the music industry who are like gender diverse and racially diverse, like, you know, getting opportunities or like being offered or like reached out to about something, and then like last minute it falling through and somebody just like hiring the typical like roadie dude who like everybody knows. And like I just hope that's the case. I know, but like I'm seeing it kind of happening that's like making me feel slightly like what are we doing really? Like I think I've seen like a couple like festivals be announced for like 2020, like end of this year, early next year, and I'm looking at the lineups and they're still like all male or like heavily male with like one female artist. And I'm just like, interesting. Like, did we or did we not have talks about this like last summer? Did we like, are we or are we not like still talking about this and like people retweeting things or like having discussions about this? And like to see like festival lineups for like the future still not be representative of these changes people want to make, it's like frustrating because I'm like, okay, are people actually putting their money where their mouth is, or actually like being like, hey, like we still need to do the thing? Because like to kind of like get on a slight tangent, the argument that I see a lot of like people saying, oh, why aren't there more women on this lineup, or why aren't there more women on tour, is they're saying, oh, well, like those bands like don't draw as many people as like these, you know, all white male bands, you know, so like obviously we're going to need to like have all these all white male headliners, you know, to make room for those gender diverse people. But I'm just like, I understand that argument, but at the same time, like, how long are you going to do that, you know? And I know people are going to say, that's exactly what we're doing now, like we're gonna bring bands out, we just need to like make sure we're turning a profit before we bring these bands out, which I understand. The music industry like took a huge hit of like there not being touring for basically 2 years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's frustrating when I want to see change so badly, and then I see people already slipping into like, we're gonna book a festival with only one like female gender diverse person on it, and yeah, like we're still doing the work though, this is just our big festival back.
Yeah,
You
a lot
know,
of higher ups in the industry are still, you know, white men who, you know,
yes,
it's ultimately, you know, however many women and gender diverse people and racially diverse people are fighting for it, it ultimately is still that one guy's decision.
yes,
And he's gonna get his way because he's got the most power. But I definitely see what you mean. Like, people are fighting for it, and I'm hoping that, you know, people who are using the pandemic to leave the industry, that leave space for different people and people who have been fighting for a chance to come in.
yeah, likewise, that's ideally what I want to happen. And then like what I see happening is just like people who want to be in touring, who have already been in touring, will be able to stay in touring, and then the people who leave, I hopefully they'll make a way for like, hey, like we're missing a crew member, like let's move this person who's like been in the industry for a couple years up to like a higher role, and then like make way for like somebody who just wants to get in, like sell merch for the first time on a tour, or like TM for the first time, like be able to have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you give somebody who wants to um, is interested in going on tour, like when the industry bounces back? What should they be prepared for, and what will get them into the touring industry?
Yes. So something I wasn't prepared for, which I wish people told me, because like on my first tour, I did not know how to act. And
Yeah,
by I did not know how to act, it was like I didn't know how to interact with people. A lot of a lot of touring is all about social skills and being able to pick and choose your battles. Like if you've ever had roommates before, like it's
I have
very
one right now.
yeah, it's very much like that. It's a matter of like, oh, I'm not going to yell at my roommate for like not, you know, cleaning their hair out of the shower like
Yeah.
all the time. Like I'm
Yep.
just going to pick it up and be like, "Oh, well, that sucks, but like, you know, like it happens." On tour, like my first tour, I would very much be like, "Oh my god, you drank the last water in the cooler. This is the end of the world. I'm not talking to you for the rest of the
Yeah.
day." Like really immature stuff like that. I was like 21 though, and I had just graduated college, so like and I had like never had like an actual real roommate. Like I had just lived in like a solo dorm or like with my parents for like the first 20 years of my life. So like
Definitely close your eyes when you live. I live 2 feet from my roommate. Like, I'm in her chair right now, and my bed is right here.
yes, oh my gosh, yes, I had like a revolving door of like roommates, because like I had like a really large like female dorm, like the room is huge, so like I like one of my roommates like moved out like halfway through the summer semester, so then like I was like, cool, I'm gonna have like technically a single for the whole remainder of the semester. And then it just like happened to be like somebody would move in at like 2 a.m, like be lugging their like mini fridge through the door at like 2 a.m, and I would be like, who are you? And then it would just be like, oh hi, I'm Sarah, and I'd be like, I'm Nicole, get out. Like so like again, but like in terms of like advice I'd give people is like learning how to just be a person and also like empathize with other people, in the sense of like, how would you want to be talked to if you were an artist with like a platform, or in general like somebody who tours, like how would you want to be spoken to and how would you want to be connected with? I think a lot of people, they think about like, what can this person do for me, or this person is cool touring person, like yeah, like like I'm gonna be cool, I'm gonna put on my cool guy touring music industry person and like name drop all these people that I know, when in reality like a lot of getting on tours about like or connecting with people in the music industry is like finding a commonality and like not going into relationships with people of like I want to go on tour, like that's the end game. Like a lot of my best friends are like in touring bands and I have not toured with them once, and it's never been like a I want to tour with them, I can't believe they never asked me to go on tour with them. It's never been that. It's always been like, oh wow, like this is a really cool person, I want to support them in like whatever way I can, like I want to exist in their life. And I think through those people who are like my best friends and are in touring bands, like they've referred me for like other really sick jobs or like other really cool tours. And it's just a matter of like genuinely connecting with people and instead of trying to like do that fake networking thing of like where you go to a ton of shows and you're talking to people and you're passing out business cards. It's a matter of just like being a good person and being an actual person instead of like a music industry robot of like like I went to a date or a member after party and I met this person, like do you know this person, and then you drop like the name of somebody who works at a label who like you casually just follow on Instagram hoping that it'll get like a reaction of somebody.
Real connection instead of like here's all the people I know. It's more of like I want to be your friend and I think your work is really cool versus you know, I know all these people, please like me.
Yeah, being a genuine person is a huge thing. I feel also like if you want to go on tour, that is awesome, but like I think there's also a lot better opportunities than touring that you should also leave yourself open to, because like I think the biggest way I played myself in my career is like only wanting to tour, like approaching like everything with like I just want to tour and that's all I want to do over the rest of my life, when like in reality like I'm good at so many things and I was just limiting myself to touring, which is something that the pandemic taught me of like, oh, I'm good at a ton of stuff, and like I've just been out here being like all I want to do is tour, when like there's so many awesome jobs in the music industry that aren't necessarily touring related and don't take like not being able to get on tour immediately or like getting the tour of your dreams, you know, like as a failure in your career, because it's not. There's so many awesome opportunities to like work alongside artists, like running their social media or creating content for them when they're not on the road, that like a lot of people overlook, which are awesome and like also really stable jobs. But definitely just learn how to be a person and talk to people, and then also work on your craft and not be afraid to be bad at something, because it's better to be bad at something and try at that thing than like keep saying you want to do the thing and then never do the thing. So just to like, if you want to be a photographer or a videographer or a tour manager or like run shows and you're just like, I have no idea how to do this, I don't think I'll be good at it, just do it, see what happens. If it was bad, be like, that was bad, but I really want to do this, so I'm going to keep trying. Or that was bad and I don't think I really want to do this, and then like switch lanes. That's another really important thing that I wish I knew when I first started too.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one last question for you. Just do you have any advice for people who are wanting to just start out in videography, photography, or creative direction? Any words of wisdom that you've been given that stick with you, or anything that you have to say to people who are looking to just begin?
Yeah. Wow. I think the biggest thing that somebody told me was to like just do it. And I know it seems like this it's cheesy advice, but I think the quote that you always see on like those inspirational Instagram pages or like Twitter, Facebook, like repost things, are like the fear of failure killed more dreams than like actually trying did, or like doubt kills more dreams than failure ever did. Like that's something that always sticks with me, is I'm like, that's so true. Like if you keep doubting yourself and you never actually do it, then like you're never going to get to where you want to be. But if you actually try and you're like, oh, well, like, I don't think I'm good, I don't know, what's the point in doing this thing? You're still doing the thing. Like I forget frequently, like a lot of people are like, oh my God, like you've done so much in your career and like you're so impressive. I'm like, what? I'm nobody. I haven't done anything with my life. What are you talking about? And it's because like I'm still very much in the mentality of like, oh, well, like I'm still trying to do the thing. I'm not doing what I actually want to be doing. Like objectively, if present me was able to exist in the same room as like me from like 7 years ago, the past me would be like blown away. Like, what? You're doing everything I want to do. What are you talking about? And I think it's just a matter of like starting in baby steps, and I would say like deconstructing your goals. So like, hey, like if you're wanting to start videography and you're like, okay, like I really like this person's work, and like my goal is to, you know, do something, not, I don't want their exact career, but do something similar to what they're doing. Like I really, like a lady that I really admire right now is Acacia Evans. She lives in Nashville, and she's a creative director, but also an amazing photographer. And she's been doing amazing like releases for music videos and album artwork for artists. I really like admire her. So like I'm gonna use her for an example of like if somebody wanted to get started and like Acacia was like your person, because she's my person, I'd be like, oh, well, like I think that's really cool what she's doing. Like, what can I do in my own little way to like deconstruct where I want to be? And I'd be like, well, I want to do music videos and I want to do album artwork. So like I should probably like learn more about music videos, or I should learn more about like the programs and all of that stuff that it would take to get there. And then like you're like, oh, I can't find an artist though. Like, how can I do this? And you can think of like, oh, well, I can't find an artist, so like, I guess I'll just quit. But then there are other ways to do things. Like a lot of my favorite graphic designers who are like doing band merch, they got their start by like making up artists and like making fake tour posters for like made up artists and creating a portfolio, which is like something that I am so like a fan of like, oh, I don't have an artist to like do a music video. I'm going to make fake artist or like find a song and then just do B-roll and like put together like some cool cinematography for that. And like
that's an awesome idea. That's super cool.
Like
yeah,
like just creating like your own artist. And it's like, because like that's the biggest wall of like, oh, I want to get started with like music photography, or I want to get started like creative directing, or I want to get started like doing stuff in the music industry. How do I do that when I don't have an artist? And you're like, okay, well, like make up an artist, think of a name that sounds cool, and then like design band merch for that really cool, like that cool name. Or like think of like an album artwork idea for like a song that you really like that may already have album artwork, but like just like do your own projects. And then that way you'll be able to like hopefully catch the attention of like actual artists, or like you have something to pitch to actual artists. So like I think it's important to just like try and do something, even if you don't think it's amazing. Other people will think it's amazing, because we're our own biggest critics. I just wish I could go back in time and tell myself of like, hey, like don't stop yourself there. Like there's still things that you can do in order to like establish a portfolio, and like you're not as bad as you think you're going to be if you start. And like anybody who has something negative to say about you starting a creative endeavor are probably just like going through something as well. And like you should definitely be like, hey, like that's really hurtful that like you don't believe in me, or you think that my art's terrible, but like at the same time I'm going to keep going, and hopefully one day like we can reconnect and like we're in different places in our life. Because like when I first started photography, oh my gosh, there's this other photographer who like shot local shows and had like a way better camera than I did. Like I had a Kodak Z915, which is like a super zoom point and shoot camera that like had manual settings and a really bad flash on it. And I would like go to local shows and just like stand there the whole night, like hoping to get one photo that wasn't blurry. And I would like have the ISO, mind you, this thing has like a sensor, super like barely a sensor, like so tiny. And I would like have the ISO cranked to like 1600, which like basically made everything look microwaved. But like I thought I was killing it, you know. I thought I was like, man, this photo of Touche Amore, so good. I'm gonna get the notes on Tumblr, I'm gonna get likes on Instagram. And like I had a photographer like post things about like how local photographers like need to learn how to use noise reduction or something like that. And it was very obviously like about me, and it was sucky because like I really like this person and their work, and I was like, I want to quit, they don't like my work and everybody else thinks my work is awful. But at the same time it was just like I look back and I'm like, I was going to shows every weekend and taking pictures, which is something that I wanted to do, and I was getting my start. And like I'm so happy I didn't quit and just like removed myself from the situation of like, oh, this person's making fun of me, because it was like my worst fear that came true, somebody making fun of me and like wanted to hold me back. But like at the same time, like again, I was proud of myself for just starting, and then I'm happy I still continued regardless. And like it's just so important that like no matter what's happens, you're still out there shooting and like creating content and doing what you want to do. There's also people that if you pitch to them, like they won't take you seriously. Like I've been doing this for like over 5 years and I still have problems with people taking me seriously and valuing my time. Know that it's not a personal attack on you. It's just like, unfortunately, the nature of the music industry sometimes that people are just like flaky and or people who are just like have biases of like, I don't want to work with somebody younger than me, so I'm not even gonna bother replying to this like, you know, like 20-year-old person, or like I'm not gonna, I don't want to like
standards.
Yeah,
You want to work with the best of the best, and if they don't know your name and your name isn't out there right in front of their face all the time, then they usually are like, well,
absolutely,
I'm not gonna work with them. I don't know who they are.
Absolutely. But again, another reason why it's important to keep going and just start, because eventually you'll get to the point where like people do know who you are, you know, and you'll be like, oh, wow, I did the thing, you know. But yeah, that's my biggest piece of advice, just to keep playing and just to start. Because if you never start, you'll never get to where you want to be or even halfway.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
How can our listeners connect with you? What's your Instagram, your Twitter, anything? Your YouTube channel if you have one?
Yes. All of my social media is at Nicole J. Stephens, and my last name is spelled Stepheens instead of with a V. Most people are like, I can't find you, and I'm like, it's not with a PH and not a V. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, and I am on Instagram. My YouTube is not very active. I've been actually working on trying to like restart my YouTube channel, because I think the video that most people watch is like the how I got started one, and at the end I'm like, I'm gonna do a video like how to get on tour, and then I never released that video, and I never put, like, I filmed it, but like I'm so scattered in the video, I never uploaded it. So I definitely want to get more into YouTube stuff. So like my YouTube is just my name, Nicole Stephens, or Nicole Jeanette 777, because, you know, I was an Underoath fan when I created my YouTube channel. I still am, but I was like, you know, super fan. I had to have the 777. And those are where all the places that you can find me. On TikTok, I am like more funny and chaotic. And then on Twitter, I am out of pocket. And then on Instagram, I'm probably the most professional there. So I recommend Instagram above all.
Well, thank you again for joining us. It was so nice talking to you.
Yes, likewise. I really appreciate you having me and having the chance to talk a little bit about my art and my career and give a kind of tangenty advice to anybody who's aspiring to get into a creative field.
That's okay. That's the best advice.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
I'll talk to you again.
Such an honor.
Very nice to get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Such an honor being on your podcast.
Perfect. Bye. Have a great rest of your day.
Hi, you too. You too.